Parshas Chaisara. It starts Perek Chav Daled. Says Avram Zokin Baba Yamim. Avram was old and he came with his days. Hashem Bereshis Avram Bakol. And Hashem blessed Avram with everything. So just in the first thing, Avram Zokin. What does it mean? Avram was old. So Rashi says, what did he have? Rashi says he had everything. Bereshis Avram Bakol. He had Bakol. What's Bakol? So the second column, third line from the bottom. Bakol is the numerical value. Bakol Oila, the gematria Ben. He had the gematria, the numerical value of 52, which is a Ben. Beis Chaf Lamed is 52, right? Chaf Lamed 50, and the Beis is 2, is Ben. So therefore he had a son, so he had everything. So on that, the pasuk says, since he had a son, so now he needed to marry him off. That's how the chapter starts off. Now, in terms of the first words of the pasuk, it says that he was old. It says Vavram Zokein. He was old. So, what would you say? What's the bracha? So, on the simple level, it says Avram was Zokein. Baba Yamim. On the simple level, Rashi's telling us he was old. He was coming with his days. He had a lot of days, and Hashem blessed him with everything. And everything means his son. He gave him a son. What more could you ask for if you have children?
But he doesn't fulfill the mitzvah puravu.
Right. So the pasuk doesn't seem to say that he had a girl also. Right.
Nobody had many children with.
So if he had from any other wives, then he would have had. Right.
Yeah, but they wouldn't be considered to be.
No, if he has a daughter, then that would.
Yeah, but that daughter is not Jewish.
That's a question. That's also a question. Maybe you get the mitzvah even if she's not Jewish. Okay, we'll have to look into that. So, but on a simple level, Rashi is saying that he was old and Hashem blessed him with everything. He gave him a son. Now and everything was complete. He was old and he had a child. But it's interesting, the Gemara in Sanhedrin says that till Avram came along, there was no one who was ever old. People, they didn't age. And a person would just move on in years, but he wouldn't look different. He wouldn't have white hairs. Until one episode happened. The episode was that there were people that were walking on the street, and they would see in the future, they would see someone in front of them who looked like Avram, but it was really Yitzchak, because it says Avram and Yitzchak had similar faces, similar, right? How they look, the facial features. So someone would come along and say, he's thinking he has to speak to Avram. So he would see someone who looked like Avram. So he would say, Avram, I'm looking all over for you. I want to speak to you. And really it was Yitzchak. So it started to be a problem, right? We know that, right? Since Avram and Yitzchak, they looked very similar, right? We had last week that when Avram had the baby, right? He had Yitzchak. He didn't look like Avimelech, right? It says over there that everyone, Hashem made a miracle, right? In the last Perek Chaf Aleph, right? When he had the baby.
So nobody would think that he was with Sarah.
Right, no one would think that the father of Yitzchak was Avimelech. So it says there that the baby looked just like Abraham. That's what it says back over there, back in Perek Chaf Aleph, last week's parsha. Right, you'll see there. You can see.
It's right in the parsha or in
Rashi.
Oh, in Rashi.
Rashi, not in the here. It says it right in the pasuk. It says, if you want, you can page 94. It says that he gave birth, right? Page 94, pasuk base, that she gave birth to Avraham, Bain, a son, Lizikunav. Lizikunav. What does Lizikunav mean? So on a simple level, it means he was a zaken, right? Pasuk base. He was old. Lizikunav to his old age. He was very old. That's a simple level, right? But Rashi says, you see that pasuk?
Yeah.
But Rashi says no. Fourth line in the second column. Rashi says no. It doesn't mean she gave birth to a son to Abraham when he was old. Rather, Zikunav is contraction of two words. Ziv Aikinan Shaloi. Ziv Ukina means the splendor of his facial features. That he looked together, he looked similar to Abraham. Ziv, it was Bain Lizakunav, it was to him, to Abraham, that Lizakunav, and it looked just like him. And the idea was that people might have thought that maybe it was really from Avimelech. And you see, for how old was Sarah when she gave birth, right? Sarah was
90.
She was right. She was right. She's over 90. So people were saying Sarah couldn't give birth for 90 years with Avraham, and now all of a sudden she was with Avi. She was taken by Avimelech prisoner. No one knew what happened there. So maybe Avimelech fathered Yitzchak. So on that, right? On that comes the pasuk, right? In our parsha, look. Let's turn to our parsha. Perek Chafei pasuk Yud Tes. Chafei Yud Tes. And here, right? Let's turn a little bit further. The truth is, it's even going to be next parsha. The first words in next week's parsha. The first words in next week's parsha is Eile Toldos Yitzchak. These are the children of Yitzchak. Who are the children of Yitzchak? Right? So the pasuk says, these are the children of Yitzchak ben Avraham. Avraham Halidas Yitzchak. So it's very superfluous. It says a lot of words. These are children of Yitzchak, the son of Avraham. So Rashi says right away that the reason why it repeats it is because people said that maybe Sarah became pregnant from Avimelech, and on that Hashem made, you see the first column, 6 lines down, the cluster panim, that the facial features of Yitzchak was similar to Abraham, and all of a sudden, Heidu Hakol, everyone came along and started saying Edus. Everyone was saying testimony. Abraham Halidas Yitzchak. Avraham gave birth to Yitzchak. So that's how you read the first words of next week's parsha. Eila told us Yitzchak ben Avraham. These are the children of Yitzchak ben Avraham. And we want to tell you one more thing. Avraham Halidas Yitzchak. Everyone said testimony that Avraham was the one who gave birth to Yitzchak, because he looked so similar.
So he's repeating like Isaac, the son.
So first it says Yitzchak ben Avraham. First it says Yitzchak was the son of Avraham, and everyone said witness that Avraham Halidas Yitzchak. That's how the first pasuk of next week's parsha goes.
Yeah, there's a reference, not quite a reference, but the same idea, when it says Hashem says to Avram, take your son Ben Hanoladlo. There's a reference, like he's saying, your son was born to you. So I heard from a shir that Ben Hanoladlo is Yitzchak was a Gilgul of Chevel, because Ben Hanoladlo, Bet Lamed He.
Okay.
I think this is from the Arizal.
Okay. It sounds like it's from the Arizal. So we see 3 Rashis already, 3 places that Avraham and Yitzchak's face looked the same as Avraham. We have Parshas Toldos, we have by our pasuk, right, by us, it says that he became old. And the Rashi says there, so what's the problem? So what happened that he became old? So the problem is, so the Gemara says in Sanhedrin that the following, Daf Kuf Zayin, it says, Til Avraham, right, there was no such thing as anyone becoming old. But what happened was, as Avraham got older and Yitzchak got older, Yitzchak already grew to be a tall man like his father. So someone would come down the street and see Yitzchak, but they would think he's Avraham. So they would say Avraham, and they would start talking with him. So they would make mistakes and they would start speaking to him. So Avraham said, I wish that there would be Zikna. There should be old age. There should be, people get old. And on that, right, Hashem answered him. Hashem answered him and said, that's this pasuk. The pasuk starts off right back where we're holding to.
So that was not just for Avraham and Yitzchak, that was for everybody?
It started right now.
Even the people that were living 700, 800, 1,000 years, they looked like young men? Is this the idea? Before
Avraham came along. Till Avraham came along, there was no zikna. And someone who wanted to talk with Avraham would might have ended up talking to Yitzchak. And someone who wanted to talk with Yitzchak, the Gemara in Bava Metzia says the opposite also. Someone who wanted to talk to Yitzchak, start talking to Avraham.
But it wasn't just for those two people. It was.
Yeah, it could be. It was for more people, but the problem came out through. It was highlighted through Avram and Yitzchak, especially because they had the same type of facial features.
Right.
So Avram davened. He stopped right there. He davened. Boi rachme. He asked for mercy, and he turned into elderliness. He turned into a zaken, and that's what the pasuk says in our pasuk, Parachav Dalet, pasuk Aleph. Avram zaken ba bayamim. Avram was a zaken, ba bayamim. Zaken. He was a zaken. Right now, he became a zaken, ba bayamim, coming with his days. Why? So according to this, it's very beautiful. Hashem beirachas Avram bakol. What does that mean?
He blessed him with everything.
Hashem gave him everything. What's bakol? Rashi says it's a son. The problem was, since there was Hashem beirachas Avram bakol, so they looked just alike, and there was a lot. Everyone was mixing them up. Avram zaken. So Hashem had to make Avram look old, and now no one mixed them up anymore. That's what the Gemara darshans in two places. Two places.
So is this the first time that we come to a point where we have the word old or zaken? Because in all the other generations from previous parashiyot, it doesn't say they became old and died, or
that's a good question. That's a good question. Irving is asking, do we ever find the word zaken in any of the previous week's parshas? And
what about Sarah? She says when Hashem said she'll have a son that she's old.
That's true. Even before, when they were listening to the Malach.
Which is very interesting. If they didn't get old, so say, that means that Sarah in her 20s looks exactly the same as in her 90s. Because she says that she's older and her skin is not that beautiful anymore, which is actually implies or is not a skin of a young woman.
So it's interesting. So one idea could be that, right? His question is that the three malachim came and they said to Avram, "You're going to have a child."
Yeah.
So Sarah was behind the door. She heard and she was laughing, and she said, "Will I give birth?"
Can be like a young woman again.
Va'adoini zaken. She said, "My master is old. Do you think I'll have a child?" So you see, she said, "Va'adoini zaken." So they asked this question right here. I see people ask the question, and they want to say that maybe there was no white hairs. It wasn't the white hair aspect till then. Maybe they were old. Zaken means old in years, right? People lived for.
But she mentions, if you go back, she mentions her skin, that she's also old. And if I'm correct, she's saying that my skin is not like a 20 years
Shall
old.
it be young again?
So what that's supposed to mean?
So it could be the skin was wrinkled. Skin was wrinkled. That's true too. But at least in terms of the hair, maybe that wasn't enough to make a differentiation between Avram and Yitzchak. So Avram said maybe there should be some type of zakena, and therefore he davened for the white hairs. The white hair should come, and then that's what the next pasuk says. Avram zaken ba bayamim. He was zaken now. Now, because we knew he was old in years. Avram was 100 years old, but now it's saying something else. Now he said. Right? Well, once you see already Yitzchak's growing older and he has a beard, right? Now we got into problems. Yitzchak has a beard, Avram has a beard, and people were mixing them up. So therefore Avram begged Hashem that he should have a beard with white hair. That's what the Medrash, that's what the Gemara says in Sanhedrin and the Gemara in Bava. And the Medrash says it also very similar. The Medrash in Tanchuma says that the beauty of people, what is the beauty? That he said, what is the beauty of me and my son? We both come into the city and people don't know who's the father and the son. Right? Because in those days, Adam Chai Meo Masayim Shana, people could live 100, 200 years. And no one would get old. So Avram said, Ribono Shel Olam, we walk into the city, no one knows the difference. So where's the beauty of me? Where's the beauty? How people know how to differentiate between a nar and a zaken, right? Abraham said it over here in the Medrash. It says how they know who to respect. Who should they give kavod for? Right? You want to stand up and bring him to the front of the shul. Who are you going to bring to the head seat? They might bring Yitzchak when they're trying. Abraham will be left in the back. So therefore, he said you have to make a differentiation between a nar and a zaken. So they should honor the zaken. So Hashem said, Chayecha, here's the Medrash says, by your very life, Mimcho ani mascho. I'll start with you. You'll be the first one. He went to sleep that night. He woke up in the morning, and he saw he had white hairs on his head and his beard. So he said in front of Hashem, you made me into a dogma. I was the example. Amalei Teres Teferes Seva. The Hadar Zakanim Seva. This is the splendor, this is the beauty of Seva, of getting old. So here's where we get the whole idea of starting out, the old.
What's also bothering me about the previous chapter, about Sarah saying that she's an old woman and how she can have babies. If you just go on 2 parshas before Parshas Noach, as an example, and I'm not even going to go before, it says that Noach lived until 130, and after he had sons and daughters, like 130, and it's not old, and she's 90 and it's old. So like, what changed? Nowhere in the Torah it's indicated that now the age going to swap from whatever they live to 120 as a typical, and later on to the 70.
So the truth is, the Ramban asked you a question. Ramban says, what do you mean? So what was so great? Sarah was 90 years old, she had a baby. Everyone, but people were older. Adam gave birth at 100, right? More than 100, and right, Noach gave birth past 100.
Yeah.
So what's so big?
And
so
all these between Adam and Noach. Also, if you read
right.
generations, also all over 100 before they give birth. It's like a maturity age was over 100.
So the truth is, the Ramban asked the question. Ramban says that there was a shrinkage of age. It started, the age was cut down, and it changed. It actually changed from after that generation of Noah. It started to shrink. The Ramban says in those days they used to live long, right? They used to live. Let's say Adam lived 930 years, wow. Right? Noach lived, right? Let's say
even Shem, because Yitzchak was studying. Yaakov actually was still studying by the yeshiva of Shem and Ever, right? Shem's still alive, and it's like
there's a chart.
10 generations from Noah, so it's 9 generations.
So I'll tell you,
close to 700-800 years at that time.
So I'll tell you, the Ramban says that till that time, right, they lived very, very long, and the reason was because Adam was perfect. Adam was made by Hashem, and he was perfect, and they were Hashem's, right? They were just made straight from Hashem, and it was natural for them to live long. But after the flood, the people started doing bad, and it was deterioration. So therefore, Hashem caused, because of that, there was a shortening of life. So until it looked that then 70 and 80 years were already normal. 70 or 80 were normal. And the righteous lived maybe a little longer. But the Ramban says that the lifespan shrunk after Noach.
Wasn't there another miracle that all the imachot, they had problems with their reproductive organs? No?
But it's applied.
But that's a separate problem.
I mean, that was a miracle that Hashem could do.
That was a separate miracle, right? But I want to just tell you that
because Ever also lived quite a long time.
Yeah. That's true, but it all shrunk. It shrunk.
So like
after.
Shem, I understand he was born before the flood, so it makes sense that he probably lived 700-800 years, same as his father.
After Noach, everything was much shorter.
But Ever was already born. He's a grandson of Shem.
Yeah. So afterwards, everything shrunk. But I want to tell you that question that you asked before, with that, what do you mean? Avram was the first Zaken. He was the first person who was old. What about Sarah? The Maharsha is the one who asked the question. Maharsha, he's in the back of the Gemara, and the Maharsha is the one who says that answer about white hair. About white hair, that people were saying these, they couldn't tell the difference. So we see there was a Cana. You're right, there was elderliness in the world, but the difference was that there wasn't any white hair. That's what Maharsha says.
Now the question is, the Gemara in Midrash refers to Abraham with the white hair, but I guess it's applied to everybody at that time, including women as well. Because Sarah should get immediately white hair.
So she also got it then. Yeah. That's when it started. Okay. So now the facial features changed. Okay. So that's the first thing. So it's interesting to learn out from here. So according to this, that's the pasuk now. That's why the pasuk says Vavram Zokin Baba Yama Hashem Bereshis Avram Bakol, because he had Bakol, because he had a son that it looked similar. That caused all the problems. So Avram therefore asked that he should be old. So Avram Zokin, therefore he turned into an older person. That's how the Gemara seems to learn up the whole pasuk with this medrash. That's the juxtaposition of these two ideas in the same pasuk. Okay, now
will be another question for me. Yitzchak had Yaakov and Esav when he was 67. 37 when Sarah dies, right? Because Sarah is 90, he's born.
Right.
Correct?
Yeah.
At 127 she dies. So we know that he's 37, that's when he marries Rivka.
Yeah.
Which is, I have a hard time to believe she was 3 at that time, but anyway. In 20 years it says he didn't have any kids.
Right.
So it's 67. So he's also in old age.
That's true. That's true. That was
she's
also
probably young at the time. If she's 3, 23 makes sense.
Yes.
Which is somewhat still for me hard to understand, but anyway.
Yeah. So okay. So but this is the idea of zakena, of zakin, right? We have even in Pirkei Avos it speaks about what's called a zakin, right? The Mishnah says ben shishim lizakena. When someone reaches 60, that's zakin. Shivim, when someone reaches 70.
I'm close to that. 56.
You're young. Shivim is seva. Shivim is seva, which is a little bit older. Shmainim is legvuros. Shmainim is already the strong ones to live to 80, right? We learned that out from Moshe because it says Moshe and Aaron, they were 80. So it says begvuros shmainim shana. We say on Shabbos. So here's where we learn out the idea we learned from Moshe. Okay, so
70 from David, right? But David says that the 70, that's all that you've got, and everything over 70 is a bonus.
Right. So it comes out, this is the idea of Zokin. So Zokin is 60. So 60 is when it's, according to this Marsha, that's the idea, that the hairs will turn white, and Rashi says this also, the hairs start to turn white at 60. Right?
Yeah.
How old are you, Harvey? So
maybe I'm dyslexic, and it's 65 instead of 56.
You're a young guy. So, but that's when it starts. And 70 is already seva. That's already further up. That's what we learn out. Shema Mina from 70 is seva. We learn out from Eov. Eov lived 140 years, and it says. So we learn out from there. We have a little learning. We have a limud how we learn that out. Okay, but seva. So what is seva? What's the definition of seva? So there they say it means total white hairs. 60 is when it starts. 70 it's total white hairs. And what's the proof? Where do we ever find someone whose whole hair, his beard turned all the way white?
Haggadah.
Haggadah. There you go, Nathan. Where do we find it in Haggadah? By the story of Rebbe Lazar ben Azariah. What did Rebbe Lazar ben Azariah say?
He was 18, really, or something like
He was 18 and he became the Rosh Hashiva, and he went to sleep, and he woke up the next morning, and he said, Hare ani kiben.
Zakin.
Right, but what did he say? His exact words were, Hare ani, remember this?
Yeah.
I am, what?
But I don't remember.
Kiben.
Like a man of 70?
Yes.
As a man of 70.
Yeah, kiben shivim shana. I'm like 70 years old. And he said, V'lo zachisi, and I never merited to hear about Yetzias Mitzrayim by night until. So he said, I'm like 70. So, and that his beard was white. He woke up the next morning, his beard was white. So therefore, that fits beautiful with this Marsha. That's seva. He woke up, he was seva. He was not only zokin. Zokin is only the start of the white hair. Seva is total white hair, and therefore, when he was 18, turned into now zokin. And that's why he said, Ariani ben shivim shana. So that's the proof that all the hair turns white by 70. And
wasn't there also a young, very young Rebbe, like in his early 20s, that they wanted him to become the head of the Sanhedrin, and he was he went home to ask his wife. I can't remember exactly, but he came back and he grew a white beard or something.
Could be there's one more, so we have to look into where that is.
Something like that.
There is something familiar. But I do want to say just one thing that what you just said before, Pesach, was saying the Rav Bar Tanura on the Mishnah says that we learn out Seva is 70 from David HaMelech. Because it says, in the Navi, it says, David died b'Seva Toiva, with good old age. What's Seva Toiva? Now, how old did David live? 70 years old. So that is the Bar Tanura's pshat in the Mishnah, that's where we learn out 70 is Seva. And then you have the last one is what we said, 80. 80 already is Gvuros, because it says in Shachris on Shabbos morning, Ben Gvuros, the ones who are strong, Shmainim Shana. And if you look up how old, it says that by Aaron and Moshe, and that's when they were going into Paro, it says that they were 80. Okay.
Which is surprising is all that age. Shlomo died not in a good age, very young.
Who?
Shlomo Melech, 52.
Yeah, yeah.
Very young.
It's true.
Such a successful king and such a young death.
Yeah, that's true.
Became king at 12, and 40 years of 52 he was already nifter.
That's true.
That's mean he with such a Chochmah and everything. That means he should have been way too young.
Yeah.
Shlomo Melech died at 52?
52.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, he was 12 when he took the kingdom from David. When he got inaugurated, and he resigned same as David 40 years.
It's true.
He passed away, so it's a simple mathematics.
So I'll tell you. So how does this all come out into halacha? This zaken is very relevant now, besides for the physical aspect, but it's relevant for halacha, for the mitzvah that has to do with the zaken, right? Which mitzvah do we have? Every day, it could be every day with the zaken. To honor a zaken and stand up for a zaken. Mipnei seva takum. It's interesting, right? The seva again, for a seva, for an old elderly person, you have to stand up. So again, that means you have to be very careful. If you have any seva walking around, a seva walks by you, you have to stand up. Very relevant. People don't know, but sometimes we have in the kollel, someone who walks in and he's already an elderly gentleman. We have 3 people come every morning who are probably over 70. If they walk by you, right, it says Mipnei Seva Takum, you have to stand up. Darta Pnei Zaken, you have to honor an elderly person. And we learn out from there. It's a big argument. What does that mean? But it doesn't mean Zaken Zeh Shekana Chachma, doesn't mean one who acquired wisdom. That's one idea, but in the end of the day, Isi Bar Yehuda says Mipnei Seva Takum. It doesn't mean it right, because maybe it means he's old, maybe it means he's smart with Chachma. If Gemara comes out, Isi Ben Yehuda says any elder, he's over 70, he's chayev. You're chayev to stand up for him, and that's how the Rambam rules. The Rambam says Mi Shehu Zaken Muflug. He's Muflug means extraordinarily old, even if he's not a chacham, he might not be smart. Oim din lefanov. You have to be omeid. You have to stand up when he walks by. As long as he's not a rasha, as long as he's not wicked. That's what the Ramah rules with that Rambam. If he's not wicked, as long as he walks by, you have to stand up. And therefore, it's very relevant. The person has to be careful when he sees someone who's in that age, right, that age bracket. Then, right, as the Mishnah says, we saw there's 2 ages the Mishnah said of zaken. The Mishnah said 60 for zaken, seva 70. So the Shulchan Aruch rules that if you have to stand up for a seva who's 70, but in the end of the day, there's a big argument about back and forth, seva and zaken. What does zaken mean? So if zaken could be years, then you got to go with the years, right? If zaken is years, then it has to be, you have to stand for anyone over 60. So in the end of the day, the Minchas Chinuch says that you should be careful to stand up for anyone who's over 60. Even though the Shulchan Aruch seems to rule seva, zaken muflug, right? Someone who's over 70, but a lot of people are very careful to stand up for anyone over 60. Interesting argument. Okay, so that's a little bit of further with that. And according to this, it's very interesting. Hu hadin, the same thing would apply with, what would you say if a guy walks in a room? An elderly guy, right? You have to stand up for an elderly guy.
You do.
Oh, how do you know?
Oh.
Yes, you do. Why? Because the same way you have to stand up for an elderly person who is not learned, so this, by the same token, you have to stand up for someone who's a guy, because the idea is he has old age. If I'm not mistaken, right? Let me just see how he says it. Because the Gemara, well, I'll tell you. I'll read you the Gemara. The Gemara says Rabbi Yochanan would stand up before the certain goyim who would walk by who were elderly, and he spoke out his reason. He said, "Do you know how much they went through in life? How much different troubles and how much things happened to them, and how many nisim they saw? They saw miracles. They saw miracles. They went through a lot." Rava, he didn't stand, but he went like, he would make a little bit, what we call a hiddur. He would just get up a little bit when they passed by.
Now that creates a very interesting question. Would you stand up for Pope of Rome? Or the
Pope?
priest?
Oh, that's a good question.
Then you get into the question, you have two questions. First,
Yeah, it's a way to
That's like a foreign king. You have to.
But there is a void Zora, because or anybody in whatever cardinal, in Canada we have cardinals, right, of the church. He's in old age usually. He gray beard and everything. Like in Russia, you look on them, they're very gray beard and everything. But I wouldn't stand up for them. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I ask. You cannot really stand up for anybody or.
So there are actually three levels. One level was to stand up. Rava didn't stand up, but he just went like that. He made a hiddur. And Abaya would put out his hand to give them that they could support themselves on him. So at the end of the day, the Shulchan Aruch rules that even an elderly guy, you should help him be mahader. You should glorify him with words and give him a hand to be supported. So that's in terms of a guy. But in terms of a lady, you stand up for her. That's for sure, because it's no different than a man who's not learned at all. You stand up for an elderly man. So the Minchas Chinuch says by the same road, you also stand up for a lady.
Or older
who's older than, let's say, 60 or 70.
So if the gesture of standing up or making a movement, who's that for? Is that for you to learn kavod and to do an or to show to the zaken respect?
Yes.
Because if that's the case, then what if you're standing and he's standing? Like, where is the what movement? What do you do?
Yeah, no. So if you're already standing, you can't stand.
So
right?
there's nothing more to do.
Nothing more to do. But if you're sitting, you're standing up. You're showing honor to him. Showing honor to him. And even if he's not Jewish, it's still an idea to stand up or to make hiddur. The Shulchan Aruch says to give him a nice greeting and give him a hand, because at least for the first reason is that he's gone through a lot. He's seen miracles. He's seen the problems and troubles. He's gone through life. So just for that alone, is it worth it to stand up for him? So that's also something important.
So do you have an answer for Pesach's question?
Which one?
Somebody who represents a Catholic view.
That's interesting.
Or the head of Catholicism.
That's interesting, but it's different than bowing down. It could be it's not as bad, because you're showing respect for the elderliness of him. It's different than bowing down. Could be. We'll have to look into it. We'll have to see.
And then if there's a danger to you because you don't, then you're chayav to, I think, not to put yourself in danger by others.
So no, okay, well you have to see which case. If it's really bowing down, that gets into a problem.
No, so then that's one of the three things that you can do.
Yeah. Okay, so those are a few of the main problems, that the main halachas that come up, right? And that's the beginning of this. Now maybe we'll go into one more thing. One more idea in the parsha, right? Nathan, it was one more idea, right? So far we covered this, and there's one more thing I'll tell you. Interesting piece. about the difference of the slave of Abraham. Right? What was the slave of Abraham's name?
Eliezer.
Eliezer.
Right.
So it's very interesting to see something here. You can always keep your eyes tuned to this.
Was he legitimately called a slave?
Yes, he was a real slave.
Yeah.
He was a real slave, and up to the point, right, that we learn out a lot of rules from him, a lot of different things. It even says that his tooth fell out. One time Abraham called him, and he got scared, and his tooth fell out. So the Gemara, everyone speaks about the question.
He's Canaan, right?
Yeah. So he was from Canaan. That's why he wasn't able to marry. His daughter was not able to marry Yitzchak, because he wasn't from. Canaan was not from the blessed nation.
The mask. He's called the mask. Is that Canaan?
The Masik Eliezer. Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
It says the.
So it's interesting that the Gemara there says that his tooth fell out, and then everyone asked the question that the rule is that when a tooth falls out of the slave, if it happens from the master, he goes free. So they asked, why didn't he go free? So the Rishash says, but it's only if the master actually knocks out the tooth. But here, maybe he just got scared from the call that Avram called him, and therefore that already is not the same. It doesn't have it's not a relationship to the master per se. Rather, it's a separate part. So you know what happened? Avram took the tooth. He was able to even use it. You know, you can make marble out of a tooth, I think. Right? You could use the teeth for a certain thing. So it was Avram's tooth, and the reason is because he didn't go free, right? The reason why Eliezer did not go free.
When you say, I don't know if you just made a mistake.
Yeah.
When you say it's Avram's tooth, is because what, Eliezer's tooth, or you meant Avram because he's a slave?
Because he's a slave.
It's Avram's tooth.
And now the tooth was Eliezer's property. What's the rule when a slave acquires something? The rule is
becomes the master.
Whatever the Mashakana Eved, whatever the Eved acquires, Kana Rabbi. So the tooth belonged to Eliezer, but then it went straight up to Avram, being that he wasn't his fault per se. He didn't knock out the tooth, so Eliezer doesn't go free. He remains a slave. So the tooth goes to Avram. Avram was able to use it. So that's the idea there with Avram. So therefore, since he was a slave, that's why his daughter could not be the one for Yitzchak.
A slave? No. Well, if he was a Jewish slave, but he wasn't Jewish. I mean, he was a.
Well, he was an Eved Kanani. He was an Eved Kanani, right?
But that's not a Jew.
Well, it's a partial Jew. Partial Jew. The Eved Kanani has to do mitzvos like a lady.
Right.
You have to do all the mitzvos which are not time bound. So that's the reason why you'll find that he wasn't able to. His daughter was not able to marry Yitzchak. If you notice,
he wanted that.
He wanted. How do you know that Eliezer wanted his daughter to marry Yitzchak? Right?
I think when he said, "If I don't find,"
right? He said, "If I don't find," let's say Avram told him to go and get a wife.
Then you're exactly.
He said, "Let's say I don't find someone there. Maybe the lady won't want to come back." So if you look there, he said Ulai. It's missing a vav. So it sounds, if you read it without the vav, it's Eli. Maybe to me, if she doesn't want to come back, maybe you'll take from my daughter. And Avram told him, when you become a baruch, when you become blessed, then I can take your daughter. But he had to undergo this whole trip, and then he became a baruch afterwards. He only became blessed after the whole trip, and he broke his midos, he broke the bad midos, he worked on himself, and he did whatever Avram asked him. Then he became a blessed one, only after this whole story. But right now he wasn't blessed, so... Blessed meaning he was free? Not free, but he became a baruch. That Avram couldn't marry someone who wasn't a blessed one, which means the people from Canaan were not called the blessed ones. So only after he went through all the trials of going, and he had to go to the well, and he couldn't stray from any of the instructions. Yeah. Then there was a voice called out, "Now you became a baruch. Now you became a blessed one." Okay. Fine. Good.
Wasn't he referred to as Abraham's trusted servant or something?
He was. He was a trusted servant. Absolutely.
Okay.
Very good. Yeah.
Thank you.